the Open Mind Space podcast. The first one was meeting me, so the second one is we'll be meeting the lovely Renee, the feminine behind all of this. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Your name's Murray, by the way, just in case.
My name's Murray, by the way.
In case anyone.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
I was gonna ask a question of like what or how you found yoga, but I think your story starts a long time before that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So you have a pretty unique adolescence, really. So your journey into energy work and into the realms of spirituality and all of this started quite young for you, right?
Yeah, I've been intuitive since as long as I can remember, but it got really loud and I started to be trained or mentored in it at around the age of 12. So it was quite unique in that during my teen years, every Tuesday night, Mum would take me to a meditation group and I would meditate, but also learn about energy and spirituality and my intuition and the universe and all of the magic that's behind the reality that we usually know.
Totally. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think like on one hand it's pretty cool that this stuff was identified in you and your parents navigated it really well in a really healthy manner. Where it could have gone the other way, right? So
yeah, potentially.
Yeah. How did this play out? So it would have been quite different to the other children around you.
Yeah, until I don't really know how to answer that. Yeah, it was different, I suppose, to other people because I was quickly realizing, particularly, I guess, more so in high school, that people weren't receiving information the same way I was, or seeing the things that I was seeing. So, for example, maths exams would come really easily to me because I would see the answer or hear the answer or be told the answer. Same with writing stuff out. There's an element of intellect and study there, but it was also just I'll be told the answer. Or like, I remember in one particular exam, I was writing something down and the lights flickered, and I asked the question like, for me, lights flickering is a sign of something around, and I asked, what do you want? And they were pretty clear of, you're writing the wrong answer. They started giving me all of this other information, which, yeah, I don't think many teenagers tap into, or they might have it but not realise what it is. Yeah.
Nice. So for you, it was quite strong. Talk us through what it is, what it was back then, how it looked, and how it played out in your day-to-day life.
When I was super young, it looked like seeing a lot of things. So it felt like seeing energy, seeing like there's a transparent layer on top. So I could still see the real world and see you, but I would see either a color over the top of you, or I would see a person standing next to you, or they'd be very real. So I really struggled going to like old time places where there'd be a lot of energy. So in Australia, like for example, Maitland Jail, or in Newcastle, Fort Scratchley, like I just couldn't do it. There'd be so much anxiety. Or even like we went to San Francisco when I was younger and did Alcatraz, and it was just like this, like could just feel the energy or see the beings in the room. It was just too much. It was scary because I didn't quite know what it was and didn't know if it was part imagination or if it was real. Then that kind of evolved into a knowingness, like how I was saying, I would get information. I would get stories told to me, or little random bits of information that there's no way I would have known what it was or how that related to someone else. So when I met my mentor, Mark, or when Mum introduced me to him, doing the meditation started to give me tools to work with it. So I would kind of usually shut it down during the week and then during those few hours on a Tuesday night, I would practice dropping into meditation, energy work, learning how to channel energy. So learning how to bring it in and then speak it through my voice, which took a really long time to get used to, and understanding, being an empath, what energy was mine, what energy belonged to someone else. And then as that kind of grew, straight after high school, I went and studied kinesiology, which for for me was a godsend because it gave me a structure, a physical structure as to how I could utilize and channel this energy. It gave me a process to bring it through. And then that kind of developed. There was a stage there where I ignored my intuition because I got over being different, what in my world I perceive weird.
The weird one?
The weird one, yeah. I got over, and it was only my perception, really. I was holding myself in that space. So yeah, I went and did other stuff, worked in TV for a while to try and disassociate with that, but it's drawn me back in a big way. I got back into my kinesiology, and now what my intuition looks like is seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing. It's kind of magnified and amplified. Feel the energy traveling through my hands for healing work, knowingness. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to say, like, for example, in yoga classes, people are like, if I go lay hands on someone, they go, how did you know that that's where the pain was? And I don't consciously know, just something, energy, higher beings tell me, put your hands there. Or I see it like a pulsing. See, it becomes brighter, so I go and put my hands there and just do what I'm told.
Do what you're told.
Just do what I'm told.
It's pretty cool. So you've completed the energy traineeship, moved into kinesiology, and had enough, wanted to be normal for a while. So took yourself on a little merry holiday down to Sydney, got involved in TV, working on the sets of Home and Away, Doctor, and other...
And just a whole bunch of short films.
Right.
Really, I did one of my apprenticeships was on the TV show Wonderland as well, so I just worked on Australian drama and then short films. I started off as a runner, as a gopher and a driver, and doing kind of odds and ends jobs, and then trained up as a script supervisor, which was great, and I loved it, but it was also definitely my ego, because I saw it. I was like, I don't want to be a runner forever. I'm not just going to do this. I picked the job that I wanted, and I just went for it.
That's why I was asking, because it's like, what you do is, and from what I know of you, and I know you quite well, is you'll pick something and then it doesn't take you very long to become quite good at it. There's no middle ground for you. It's like, I'm doing this and I'm going to find out how to do it really well.
Yeah.
And that's what you've done. So you're quite good at what you do in kinesiology, and then just dropped it and went into TV. And for most people that would be moving into TV, reaching these goals would be enough. It would be like, awesome, I'm working on these sets, I'm this person, I'm working on these sets.
Yeah, and it worked for my ego as well, because I was one of the youngest script supervisors in Australia, so I was 24, 25, 26, and the next youngest would have been 35. On the dramas, on the short films it's a bit different, but on the big TV drama sets I was definitely the youngest, and so that kind of like puffed my chest a little bit, and I was like, yes, doing it. But then everyone started asking, what's next? Like, where are you going to go next? And I just didn't have the drive. I didn't have the drive to become a director or a producer.
And it's funny, so you brought up the fact that you had no drive, and because I know the story quite well, and it's like, when I hear certain pieces of it and like the puzzles all start coming together, and you're a very driven person by nature. You like a list, and you like ticking things off, and you like setting goals, you like achieving them. And being in something where you have no drive, I then think of, well, it probably is a reflection on the fact that you weren't fulfilling your life's purpose.
Totally.
That what you were doing, you knew deep inside yourself that it probably wasn't what you were meant to be doing.
Yeah.
You were meant to be somewhere else, doing something else, offering this gift to people.
Absolutely, yeah. It felt, when I was at the peak of it, it felt a bit shell-like.
Yeah.
Like I could tick the boxes, I could get everything done, I could get it done well, I could get paid well, but there was just no connection to it. My ego was super excited for it, but then I was like, wow, if I'm going to keep doing this for years, I don't know. Yeah.
Totally. So you turned your back on the gifts you were given.
Yes.
To go on a little adventure, which wasn't fulfilling you. So what happened? What took place for you to realize, or the shock that you experienced to realize that you were meant to be somewhere else doing something else?
It was a combination of things. It was like one of the final jobs I did, one of the final contracts I did. I just the way that the director was communicating with me and all this kind of stuff, I was like, I don't really need to be in this world. I don't need to experience this. The way I wasn't really being able to interact with friends while I was on that work, it didn't really excite me. I was looking around my life and just going, oh, okay, I'm living in like a high-rise apartment that I promised myself I'd never live with. I'm living on like a 6-lane highway, which just I promised myself I would never, like I promised myself if I moved to Sydney, I'll live in like a cool little terrace house. I'm not going to live in this rat race. And for the majority of my time in Sydney, I did live in really cool places with really cool people, but just that final place, it all just like clicked. And before I was living in that final place, I had another big shock. So I was ignoring all my intuition, all of my intuitive signs, and
which is super important. So you have this, and I know this. I've watched it happen on a daily basis. It's quite cool to watch how she navigates life by fully trusting her connection to these beings or her source. And from what I know, when Renee went and lived in Sydney, she chose to cut off that connection. Turned your back on that connection that you'd worked most of your life to build. That you build a really strong connection with these energies that you work with, and then one day just went, I'm done with you, I want to go be normal.
Yeah, essentially. That's what I did. And yeah, they just kind of came back with I got a boot. Got a severe boot from the universe. So it happened in a place that I was living in. Long story short, there was a party or a night out, and I was sober. I was designated driving. The party ended back at our place, the terrace that we were living in, and one of the guys involved in that party asked if he could stay in my bed. And when he asked that question, as he was walking to my room, I saw everything just like switch back on, and I saw these big like fire engine, red lights, like huge, like it was right in front of my face, like this big light. And I chose to ignore it. I just was like, what's this, go away, like I'm not interested in what's going on. And what followed that evening was that guy ended up sexually assaulting me. And wasn't very nice. wasn't a nice experience. It put me down to ground zero. It totally ripped everything apart. And but it was the big boot I required from the universe to say, pay attention, that you're not listening to us. We gave you this big warning sign, you didn't listen to it. And this was one of the results. I'm sure there are a lot of other contributing factors, but for me, that's just the real cut and dry of it, was I had the big warning signs and didn't do anything about it, just continued moving forward without paying attention. But I like to believe there's always a silver lining. So that situation allowed me to rebuild and allowed me to experience a deep sense of healing and putting myself back together and refinding my own strength and teaching me to, in some ways, not be a people pleaser. Because in that particular instance, that was what I was doing. Like, I was tired, I wanted to go to sleep, and it was just easier to say to this guy, sure, sleep in my bed. Like, I want to go to sleep, I'm done. Not a problem. And something really interesting that the amazing psychologist I went to as well said, because there's always hindsight, like I should have, I could have, I did,
of course,
whatever. But one this amazing thing my psychologist said is that you only know what you only know. And at that moment in time, what I only knew was that men wouldn't hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
What I only knew from the men that were in my life was
Your previous experience.
Previous experience of men was that they
I know
would,
your father quite well, and like he's definitely a protector.
yeah,
I watch him do absolutely anything for you. So
yeah,
the lessons you've learned in life would portray that men are to be trusted.
men, yeah.
They're there to
And
protect
I had a lot of guy friends, have a lot of guy friends, but they're all supportive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really great perspective from the psychologist that my information, my brain's information at that point in time is men are to be trusted, and a man would not hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no reason to suspect a
Mhm.
man. Yeah, so that was a lesson.
Definitely, yeah. So it was like, and it's hard to look at like that totally. So like, and we've had many conversations about this because it's something like that we freely talk about. We keep this line of communication open around this stuff because it needs to be spoken about.
Yeah.
And it was, as you see it and as I also see it, was like, come on Renee, it's time to go back to what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely pushed me to reassess, to reassess where I was living. And it's funny how, it's not funny, but it's all, there's no such thing as coincidence, but the way everything was lined up. Like I had been kind of umming and ahhing about moving out of this place, but couldn't really find a good enough reason. That was a pretty good reason because that guy was a friend of one of my housemates. I also didn't want to live in that room anymore,
Totally.
where I'd experienced that. But as it worked out, when I finally kind of brought myself to ring up mum and dad and say this is what's happened, it turns out that following weekend, so in a few days' time, they were coming down from Newcastle to Sydney and to help one of my aunties, and they were having the trailer with them. So they could come, they could pick up all my stuff, and they could take everything back to Newcastle. One of my other aunties had a spare room which they just furnished full of stuff, so I could easily just put myself there and not have to worry about finding a house, finding new people. So there was the big boot, but then the universe set everything else up to support me so that no one else was put out of place in supporting me. So I'm very grateful to have mum and dad be able to do that. I'm very grateful to my aunties who were able to hold me in that space, because that's a really tricky space to hold someone.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so that's continued. So from what I know from your story is like that was the turning point. It was the reboot, the shock, the massive wake up that has brought you back to your calling. And since then, obviously there was a point where you had to go through the healing, which is never ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is just, that's a continuing thing. But from then was like the coming back to what it is you're meant to be doing. And from what I know and from the way we live, it's been nothing but like progress. It's like, thank you for coming back. Have this.
Yeah, absolutely. I returned. It was a good 6 to 12 months of healing where I couldn't deal with anything or anyone. And I just turned inward and healed. Still went to work and stuff, but it was, healing focused.
Which you were to be admired for.
Thanks.
Like totally. So, a devastating experience, and somehow you were able to reach out to a few people, your family, that were able to support you, and then making the decision to set that time for yourself to start the healing process as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I know for any trauma-based experience that to reach a point where you choose to start the healing can take a long time. Sometimes you get trapped in this place. It's like the self-destructive nature. The pain is too much. The trauma is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an unfolding. Not all of it could be dealt with at once at all. And as you said, there's still an unfold. There's still little things that pop up 2-3 years later. But again, the amazing psychologist. So I reached out to like kinesiologists and intuitives and energy healers and journey workers and a psychologist. So I incorporated as much as I could. But the psychologist really she was fantastic. And she kind of sat me down once after I got the conversation out of what had happened. She sat me down and she said, right, what has happened is not your fault. So if you imagine that you're a parked car and this person was a drunk driver They've hit your car. You weren't driving. You weren't moving anywhere. It is 100% them. They were drunk, driving, smashed into your car. You still have to do the repairs though.
Yeah.
Your car is still damaged. You still have to go through the process of repairing the car.
Yeah.
So from here though, there is a distinct choice. You can focus purely on repairing your car, or you can look at the other car and go, I want to damage you more. I want to hold you accountable. I want to, the court process and all that kind of stuff. And she said that draws out. And for some people, that's a very appropriate and amazing choice. But for me, when she kind of laid it out.
To have that closure.
Yeah, totally. But for me, it was like, I don't want to hold on. I don't want to have my parked car sitting there damaged for however long that process, because you can't touch the parked car. Once you enter that system process, that parked car has to remain with that damage until a judge says, this is what happens because you did this damage. This is what happens. You can't touch that damage. It has to stay there.
Totally.
But if you choose not to do that system, then you can start the repairs straight away, which is what I preferred to do because I firmly believe in karma and good luck, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, and props to you for choosing to do that. So it would have been a really tough decision because human nature sometimes I think plays out and it's like, I want to get them back in whatever situation. It's like I want them to hurt as much as I'm hurting.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think there was that element as well, but there was also, I was watching a lot of people around me experiencing that more than what I was.
Yep.
So I think I just chose to focus on myself rather than put any energy into.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
And it's totally paid off. So, so what happened? So there was the explosion, and then it was clear that it's happened a few times that I know of where there's just this clear cut for you. It's like, that's finished. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
And you get heavily supported when you choose to drop into your source and play the part you're meant to be playing. Then I watch how heavily supported you are. So what took place? There was the explosion.
Healing process. 6 to 12 months of
So
healing.
where was this? By this time, where were you? Still in Sydney?
Still in Sydney, yes. It was a combination of I was living with my aunties, and then I got the opportunity to live with one of my best friends in an amazing apartment in Paddington, and that was really great healing as well, because just to live with one other person who knew me very well, and we could just have our space and have lots of fun. And it was a combination of I was healing, but I also didn't have to look at it. Like,
right.
It was just a really good balance of like, yes, I'm healing, but yes, I'm not going to look at it. Like,
Constantly. It wasn't a 7-day a week in
your
face. There was some relief.
Totally, yeah. So still healing through that kind of process, and then I ended up moving to that kind of rat race high-rise apartment because we got booted out of our amazing Paddington place. And then that's when things started to click of like, hold on a second, this isn't where I want to live. This isn't feeling right. I'm not feeling okay. So as I started to drop back into myself and what I knew, I put an ultimatum out to the universe, like a pretty solid ultimatum of, okay, I'm done with Sydney. I'm done with this lifestyle. I'm going to give you, I think at that time it was 3 months. This is to the universe. I'm going to give you 3 months and X amount in my bank account. So I didn't want my bank account to drop below a certain number. And I was like, I'm going to follow. I'm going to fully trust. I'm going to throw myself in. I'm going to do the muscle testing. I'm going to follow the feeling. I'm going to manifest. I'm going to play by all of your rules and everything that I've learnt. I'm going to just do it. No questions asked. I'm just going to throw myself into it. And in 3 months, either my bank account hasn't dropped or you've like led me to the right place. If that hasn't happened in 3 months or before my bank account hits here, then I'm coming back to Sydney. I'm going back into TV. Because TV was my safe space. I knew how to make money.
So you were in Newcastle when you made this ultimatum?
No, I was in Sydney. Because I was like, okay, need to make a choice. Either move out of here and just cut everything and just go. So I ended up traveling because that was what felt really good. I ended up doing road trips with a really good friend, going to America to visit my auntie in America, doing stuff up in Byron Bay. Like I just spent 3 months traveling through my lease in Sydney and followed the feeling. And it was through
Totally.
following that feeling that I got really great experiences, started to learn more about myself, was able to start doing courses. So somewhere in there as well, I did move back to Newcastle, moved all my stuff back to Newcastle. My parents' place in Newcastle became a base early 2017. And I would just dabble in things. I would kind of do short films here, day stints on TV, like day contracts on TV or in some movies. Then I would kind of do a week's worth of kinesiology, and then I do a workshop over here, and then I go and travel. And then like I was just kind of picking at everything. And I did that for the majority of 2017, just figuring out, what am I doing? Am I doing TV? Am I doing kinesiology? Am I doing a balance? And somewhere in there as well, it felt really good through the muscle testing again and through following the feeling. I ended up doing my yoga teacher training, which wasn't to become a yoga teacher. It felt like at the time that was a really good part of my healing, to reconnect with my body.
Which it is. So a lot of people choose to do a teacher training program to either become a teacher, but I know from some of the trainings that I've done that the majority of the people who go there don't want to teach. That they've got some stuff that they want to work through, or they just want to gain a better knowledge of their practice. I think for everyone that does a teacher training program goes through an awakening, a level of healing or understanding the imbalances in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a good start for me, because I definitely fully disconnected and shut off from my body since the assault. So it was a really great opportunity for that. And then when I got back from that, just in the circles in Newcastle, just people started asking, do you want to teach a class here, or do you want to try this there? And it just...
Once again, supported.
Yeah.
It's like you took the step here.
Yeah.
We'll support you.
Yeah, because the choice was either to... Well, it wasn't actually a choice. I got the opportunity to renew a contract in Sydney, a 5-week contract, and I muscle tested whether I should do it or not, and it said no, and a part of me sank, because I was like, I really want the money. But if I had gone and done it, I wouldn't have been able to go and do the teacher training, because the teacher training landed in the middle of that contract. So and then it's led to all of this.
And we're still muscle testing.
Still muscle testing everything.
Awesome. So it's a pretty unique story.
Yeah. Everyone's got a unique story.
I think so. Yeah. Definitely, everyone has a story. And here we are. So we opened the Open Mind Space together.
Yeah.
After cultivating a pretty big following through the full moon meditations.
Yeah.
We were teaching around Newcastle, at other places. Definitely, we knew it was time to do our own thing. So here we are.
Yeah. We should share the story. I don't know if we did in the last one, the story about how we decided to get a space.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Or should we save that for another podcast?
I want to share it now.
Go for it. The beginning of this year, it wasn't it? The beginning of 2019. So towards the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, we were playing around this idea of what's next. Like we were asking ourselves, what's next? Where do we go next? How do we unify what it is that we're creating? Because you had, in October in 2018, you'd done your teacher training. So we were exploring, okay, what does this look like, us combining and unifying? And we were playing around with the idea, and with the guidance of my yoga teacher mentor, she was suggesting go overseas. Like go and explore and go and teach in all of these incredible places and meet new people and just expand. Like get a network, get knowledge.
Yeah, just go over the globe. Like just... And that excited us. Like
totally. And
there were opportunities for you to be a surf guide as well as a yoga teacher, and I could do my kinesiology as well as yoga teaching. And we just we emailed so many places and replied to so many job applications. We got nothing back. Like, we got one email back for like a real half-assed opportunity. And this, for those that don't really know us, this was gobsmacking for us, because we're the kind of manifestors. When something gets put out there, you get a response straight away.
Good responses.
Good responses, or a pretty clear-cut no. No.
So that's what we got.
Well, that's what we got, but we were just more so dumbfounded by the emptiness of it, instead of a clear, like, no thank you. It was just a...
Which was the no thank you, pretty much.
In hindsight now. But, so it was just before the January full moon, and we were like, okay, does this mean we need to be in Newcastle? Like, we were a little bit perplexed.
We were sort of asking for for answers at this point. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, because we knew where we were wasn't where we wanted to be.
It was great and it was nurturing, but we
Yeah.
just felt like there was something different.
We wanted to really bring everything together and start offering exactly what we have to offer to everyone.
Yeah. Our way.
In our way,
Yeah.
without restrictions.
Yeah. And by this stage, we were doing a full moon meditation. So I'd been running that for about 2 years, and we were getting around 50, 60 people. That was like
At
the
best.
average. At best, 50,
Yeah.
60 people showing up to these full moon. And so we're posing these questions of what are we supposed to do? We're not really sure. And the next day was the full moon meditation,
Right.
and 400 people showed up
Yeah.
on Bar Beach in Newcastle. Like 400 people showed
Yeah.
up. Like as in, we were sitting there, and Bar Beach is a beach, and there's a hill kind of behind it, and there was a tidal wave of people, just people upon people upon people showing up, and our jaw just dropped. We looked at each other and we're like, okay, I think we're supposed to stay in Newcastle.
Well, that was the indicator. That was the sign. It was like, yeah, you've got some work to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that night we went home super high, like excited on the vibes, the full moon vibes and the meditation, and just sitting with 400 people omming. And we started looking online for spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And we had kind of looked at a few previously, just putting out feelers of like what's
Yeah.
out there, what's going on, what is this about. But we found this space online the next day. So the day after the full moon, we got in contact with the real estate. He was like, great, I'll take you there this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked around and we were like, this is it. This is
Perfect.
everything that we could have wanted and more.
Yeah.
And it was a relatively easy process in getting it underway.
Yeah.
And it's where we are now in Broadmeadow, as if it was built for us.
Built just for us.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how this building came around. We were pushed into it by the universe. We followed the signs, and everything we do now at the open mind space is it either needs to align with this manifesting sensation and vibration that we have, or we muscle test.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not sure what muscle testing
So
is,
we've got some stuff coming up.
totally.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We've only actually just yesterday, we sat down and had a little conversation with ourselves and the universe and muscle testing, and manifest all this stuff that we use. So it's
Our way of life.
our way of life. This is how we live, and we want to offer this to everyone. This is like, it's cracking the code. It's moving. It's navigating through this matrix with a certain level of understanding and support. There's actually a really good way of making decisions that you know are in alignment with your highest good.
It's like you have the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
So it's like, I suppose if I take myself back to high school of when I was getting the answers, I was getting that
Right.
intuitively, but not everyone is tuned into that frequency.
That well.
That clearly.
Yeah.
So muscle testing is a physical response to
Yep.
tune into that frequency and to get
Yeah.
answers. And I think that's what's just now clicking and dawning for me, is that because I've always had that cheat sheet, and I always got confused of why people couldn't see things the way I saw them. And I remember a guy I knew, he was a little bit macho and little lady didn't have an opinion and all that kind of thing. But after a few weeks, he was like, I think I've learnt that I need to pay attention to you. He's like, you can see things before they happen. He's like, you've got some sense where you know, like, you're not making it up and telling me I should go left. You know I should go left. I was like, yeah, like, can't you see that? Can't you see that, like, two steps down the line, if you go left, this is going to happen? He's like, I can't.
Yeah.
So muscle testing gives you that answer. It tells you, go left,
Yeah. Totally.
without kind of having to see it or feel it or sense it. Or it's a cheat sheet. It's a superpower.
We're going to be offering this to everyone. We've actually just put together several workshops in person that we're also going to be doing online, so everybody will be able to have access to this stuff. The beginning of 2020, we will be releasing them one after the other. So for the people that want to get involved, you can follow us on social media, the Open Mind Space on Instagram and Facebook. Or keep checking in with our websites, www.theopenmindspace.com.au. So yeah, we're going to be offering exactly what we do on a daily basis to use these tools that we've been given.
Yeah, because this building, the Open Mind Space, the business, it So I moved back to if I look just at my story alone, just from my timeline, I moved back to Newcastle in the beginning of 2017. This place opened in April 2019. So in, what's that, 2 years, 2.5 years, I went from nothing, no client base, no business, to finding you and opening a fully fledged self-supporting business.
Yeah. From week one, this place was supporting itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tools we use, and we trust them that much. And this is what we want to offer. It's not like, oh, you can just do it sometimes and get a half-assed answer, and sometimes you might use it and be really confused with the feedback. So we want to offer the daily practice that we use. Yeah, so this is a way of living, and like, it's a pretty good way of living. There's no more fear. You can move through the fear of the unknown. It's like, you get given the answers. It's so cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Love you. Mwah.
Gross.
Gross. Thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said at the start, there's the episode 1, which was meeting me. Go check that out as well. I'm going to have some more coming. I've also got some things lined up, so I'm going to be doing some tutorials on IGTV around and YouTube. So IGTV will be shorter snippets of some yoga practices, meditations, and then the YouTube will be sequences from beginners all the way to advanced. Awesome.
Cool.
Stay tuned. Lots happening.